Hello, I'm a recovered addict alcoholic. My name is Dexter, and welcome to Trudge, a journey towards being recovered. I say I am recovered because as the result of working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in its original form, and having a spiritual awakening, the obsession to drink alcohol and use any mind or mood altering substances has left me. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and what Trudge is all about. My recovery date is 1/23 of 2001. I'd like to tell you people that I have been in recovery for 13 years, but the truth of the matter is that for the first 11 of those years, I pretty much picked and chose the parts of the program that I wanted to do. And based on doing that, I stayed very, very sick for a long time, to the point where it's pretty much only by God's grace that I sit before you, the viewer, and tell you that I still have that much time to speak of and to celebrate. The purpose of Trudge is to help those who are afflicted and to show them, via the 12 steps of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, how to begin to have a relationship with a power greater than themselves, which will help them solve their problem and have those obsessions removed. I've been working this program in this capacity for about 2 years. Prior to doing this, I feel like there were a lot of holes in my program, and it was very much hollow. Growing up as a kid, I was one of those kids that always felt less than. There was always something about me that wasn't good enough. I wasn't fast enough, I wasn't cute enough, I wasn't strong enough. There was always something that I just felt like I was lacking, that everyone else got, but I never got. And, my whole life I tried to fill that void with things. I always felt about 50 cents away from a quarter. That's the best way to explain it. And I grew up with this going through my teen years into early adulthood. And then, as I got a little older, I started experimenting with mind and mood altering substances and alcohol. And that, I believe, was my first relationship was with drugs and alcohol. And when I fed that, I felt good. I felt accepted. I felt like I could really be somebody and be myself. And I chased that for a lot of years, and I fed that for a lot of years. And the day came where it became not a recreational thing for me, but something that I had to do. Being drunk, being stoned, being altered somehow, just to do the simplest things. It became, a terrible relationship. My best friend and partner turned on me, and it became something that I had to do. Fortunately for me, I was one of the lucky ones that didn't have to go through a whole lot of degradation, and despair to find the 12-step rooms, of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. I was one of the lucky ones. In 2001, I believe I was prayed into these rooms, and I came in, and right away I felt the same way about the people in the rooms as I ever did the first time I drank alcohol and had, mind and mood altering substances in my body. I felt like I was at home. I felt like I belonged. While there were people there that I couldn't identify with, I recognized that it wasn't about comparing my life to theirs, or the fact that, there are women with black eyes in the room, and people who are, destitute in the rooms, because that's not how I came up. But I was still a drug addict and an alcoholic, just like they were. And I ran with it. And I learned about getting through so I didn't have to use anymore. I became somebody that enjoyed being clean and sober. It was wonderful for me. The problem with that is that there's parts of our program that I wasn't willing to do. And I wasn't growing spiritually. I was just devoid of the substance. And I hemmed and hawed, and, I had sponsors, and I kind of worked steps, but I never really did practice any of the principles in all my affairs, like the 12-step talks about. The steps culminate with those words in all my affairs. I was the drug addict alcoholic who, would cheat on my taxes and run red lights, and transfer my, my addictions into other places, whether it was food or gambling or, sex or all kinds of different, other things that I was using against my own will, and justifying these things as being okay because I was clean and sober. And so, as the years progressed and I celebrated year after year after year of being abstinent from the drink and the drug, and basically fighting this demon every day and using my willpower to, just for today, not drink and drug, I became less and less happy. And the pink cloud went away. And I started to recognize that there were people that were coming in well after I came in that were getting well and I wasn't. And I would hear these people and see their happiness and wonder why I didn't have that. Seeing people that were coming in burnt toast, now leading happy, joyful, fruitful lives. And why wasn't that me? Why wasn't I getting that? And the truth of the matter is that, some of the lesser forms of insanity include doing things my way. And the program of action that's highlighted in the birth of the 12 steps in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, also known as the Big Book, is very clear about these are the steps we take to having a spiritual experience and getting well and being happy, joyous, and free, and having the obsession to do whatever you have to do, whether it's drink, drug, gamble, whatever, smoke bark off a tree, whatever it is, removed. Not have to fight that every day. And I didn't have that. And as the years piled up, I became more and more unhappy and more spiritually sick. And I was sharing a lot of the mess in our rooms, and I just couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting well. I was going to a lot of meetings, and I was doing a lot of service work. But the one thing that I never had was a relationship with a power greater than myself, which is absolutely of paramount importance and what our program is predicated on. You see, I was in the fellowship for 11 years. I was never in the program. I drank tons of coffee. I went to tons of meetings. I dated the women in the program. But I never did what that book asked us to do. How it works, I never did that. And it was mind-blowing to me when it was explained to me that I had never done that. That's why I wasn't getting well. And right around my 11th birthday anniversary, I took a coin and was very excited about that. That was always one part of the year that I could always rest on having some happiness, was around getting through another year. But I was still pretty unhappy. Shortly thereafter, the euphoria of taking that coin went away. And I knew something had to be done because I was going the other way. I was not growing spiritually. The more I listened to the things I would say and do when I wasn't in meetings, became more and more apparent that a relapse was imminent and I was in trouble if something didn't change. But I didn't know how to change it. I couldn't find anybody to help me do more than put a band-aid on a bullet wound. And I was in trouble. And I was in trouble. Around this time of my 11th birthday, I was working in a pretty lucrative position outside of where I live, doing something that I love to do, in a capacity that I love to do it. I love football. It's one of my favorite things to do is watch football. I love the NFL. And I was lucky enough to work for the NFL in this capacity, and I was out of state working at the Super Bowl. And I was making great money, and I had an expense account and a rental car and a nice little condo, and I was away from home for about 7 weeks, and I was in a position where I couldn't make a lot of meetings. And I'll never forget, as I stood on the 50-yard line and the Lombardi Trophy was about to be delivered to Eli Manning, and I'm standing there, and I'm just, thinking to myself, wow, how great this is. But at the same time, I couldn't dodge and deny how much I just wanted to die. How unhappy that I was, clean and sober. I just couldn't. At that moment, I felt like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? And I knew that I had been as close to a drink or a drug as I've ever been. And I went back to my room that night, and I knew that I was about to make one of the biggest choices of my entire life. A lot of people talk about bottoming out in the streets and before they come in the rooms. I did that. But I also had my bottom in the rooms. Fortunately for me, my God had put somebody in my life 4 years prior to this going down via a recovery website, and we became good friends. And this person's story was just like mine, very much like my own. And over the last year or so of our friendship, prior to me going out and leaving town and working, this person started to sound different. They started to just sound different. There was a change going on. They started to sound more happy, and the things they were saying weren't things that I was hearing in meetings. And I couldn't relate. I couldn't understand. And as I got more and more sick, I felt like, well, I just need to up my meeting attendance, and so I started throwing a lot of meetings at this program, 90 and 90, then another 90 and 90. I did 220 meetings in 180 days, and I was still very, very, very ill. And I heard a lot of good things in those meetings, but I didn't hear what I needed to hear. The truth of the matter is I went to a lot of those meetings and never heard about working the steps or the power of God. Ever. And what she was saying was foreign to me. And so when I went back to my room that night, I called this person and I said, I need help. I'm away from home. I have no real relationship with a power greater than myself, other than when I need it, when it's convenient to me. I can't get to a meeting right now. I think I want to go, drink and party with those guys. And she said to me, I've been waiting for you, and I can help you, but you have to be willing to want to go to any lengths. She said, Dexter, you've never worked the program of Alcoholics Anonymous before. You've never worked the program of Narcotics Anonymous before. You've been in the fellowship. You've gone to tons of meetings. You've drank plenty of coffee. You've taken people's numbers and inventories, but you've never worked the program before. How it works, you've never done that before. And I had to really take a good look at that, and that was really hard to hear, because I've done a lot of things in these programs to get clean and to stay clean and sober, but none of them I found are going to work like having a spiritual experience has worked for me. And that's the one thing that I was always missing. It was like having a really, really nice car but no engine. And so, she said to me, we were going to get to work right away, but the bottom line is you have to be willing to go to any lengths. The program of the original program of Alcoholics Anonymous is not a buffet. It's not a presented to you in this make your own Sunday capacity where you can pick and choose the things that you want to do and have a spiritual experience. The difference between all those other people you were seeing get well and you was they were doing it in its entirety and you were hemming and hawing. You could do steps 1, 2, and 3 and not do 4, 8, 9, and you're not going to get the same result. And if you want the result that happened to our predecessors that put this beautiful program, down on paper so we could all have it, if you want what happened to me, to my sponsor, these are the things that you're going to have to be willing to do, or you're going to go out. You're going to go out. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew in my heart I didn't want to do that. I knew I was close, but I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew that there was a lot of yets in my story. I'm what you call a high-bottom drug addict, high-bottom alcoholic, There's not a whole lot of police cars and jail cells and handcuffs and detoxes and rehabs in my story. It's almost inconceivable that I even found the rooms, because sometimes I thought that I needed to be those things to be a member. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't say that anywhere in our literature that you have to, get DUIs or piss your pants or fall off bar stools. It doesn't say that, and so it talks about two things. It talks about being recovered. It talks about control and choice. If you can't control what you're putting in your system or make the choice to stop, there's virtually only one solution, and that's to accept spiritual help. That's to work the 12 steps and to have a spiritual experience so all your problems can be solved. Not just your drug and alcohol problem. And so we got to work, and we started to work frantically, because I was close to going out. And I was in a different city, and I wasn't anywhere near meetings. And I was working 15 hours a day. And we got to work. And I wasn't even really serious at first, but I knew I just wanted to stop. But the day came where it was get serious about this or go out. And I chose the former rather than the latter, and it's the only reason why I get to sit here today for you viewers and say that I have recovered from this disease of drug addiction and alcoholism. And mind you, folks, there's a lot of people that would hear that and refer to that in reference to being cured. I'm not cured. I've recovered based on a daily reprieve that I get that is contingent on the enlargement of my spiritual condition, which is work and self-sacrifice for others. Something that I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about the big book. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it. I knew how to be abstinent and devoid of a substance. I thought that this was a self-help program. This is not a self-help program. 12-step programs are born of altruism. This is a help others program. And I didn't know that. And these are all the things that I was taught. And as the weeks and the months went by, I felt like I was changing. All the things that were in here, I had to be willing to put them to the side. And these new concepts and thought patterns, the psychic change that I started to have began to dominate the man that I was. And I began to have a spiritual experience, and I really can't explain to you what that was like for me, except, there was no, parting of the heavens, no angels, no one came down and bestowed upon me this light, this ray there was none of that. I went to sleep one night and I woke up and I was a different man. I just was different. I felt different. The things I said were different. How I acted was different. And for the first time in my life, my insides and my outsides started to match up. How I could help you became of paramount importance. Rather than take, it became about what I could give. And I moved into the realm of being in a capacity where it was time to maybe help somebody else, to teach somebody this program that I had been taught. And so I'll never forget the day my sponsor was like, you need to ask God to put a man in your life that you can help, who needs this, who is willing to do it, who wants it. You see, mind you, there's a lot of people that need this, but you have to really want this. You have to be willing to do the work. Searching, fearing, thorough, honest, open, minded willingness. These are things that, require action that I wasn't willing to do, but until I was willing to do them, I found this solution, to not only getting sober, getting clean, but staying that way, and so I prayed for that, and shortly thereafter, God put a man in my life, and I began to take him through and teach him the book, and teach him about being recovered. Not to stay recovering and feeling like you would have to fight these demons every day in and day out, but as a result of working the 12 steps to the best of his ability and to the completion, all of the steps, that his process would be similar to mine, if not just like mine, and his obsession to drink and drug would also be removed. And that's what happened. And then I watched him do it with a man, and that's what happened to his man, to his friend, to his sponsee. And so, all of a sudden, the spiritual experience started happening not only to me, but to other people around me. And we would get together and we would have meetings and we would talk about how we could get this message out, because it is eerily different than the message that we're hearing in our 12-step programs today, my friends. And this is not to bash how anyone else works this program. You couldn't have told me anything about my program my first 11 years. I wasn't ready to do it. I wasn't listening to it. I wasn't ready to hear it. This is for people who are ready and who absolutely want it. Our message is clear, and how it works, the instructions are clear. if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. You know, and today, I want what I have, and I'm willing to go to any lengths to keep it. And by doing so, I have to be able to give it away. I have to want to give it away. I have to want this. Just like I wanted to get drunk and get high and wanted to act out and do all those other things that I had to want it. And so that's what I've done the last 2 years. And it's been an amazing ride, you know, and it doesn't seem like that pink cloud has kind of gone away. And have I had problems? I've had problems, but I'm in solution-based living today. And it seems like the only real problems that I have today only happen when I break out in this rash of self-will. You know, when I live according to what God's will is for me and continue to live the steps, not just continually work over and over and over, but to live them, to apply the principles that I learned, these spiritual principles that I've learned in these 12 steps in my life has been great. And so, you know, I sit around with the people that I work with and we talk about what we can do to further this message. You know, how do we get this message out? You know, in the early days, in the early times, in the late 1930s, you know, our predecessors, the first 100 men and women, the word was getting out about this program, and people were, you know, they were stopping drinking and staying stopped. And inquiries were coming in from all over the globe about this miracle, this household miracle that was taking place. People wanted to know about this. And so these men and women, they wrote the big book. And they made it so that you could too have the solution. And you can read the pages of this book and apply everything that you had learned in that book and get well and stay well. You know, you didn't have to learn anything about how not to relapse, you know, because you were learning something on how to be recovered. And so a couple weeks ago, the first person I took through this program, through the book, you know, showed up at a meeting I was at, and very excited, you know, had this idea, you know, this vision came to him. You know, he said, God brought me this vision, and the vision was you using your knowledge of the big book and your skills with computers and technology to put a program out there online for men and women who struggle with drugs, alcohol, or whatever it may be, you know, sex, gambling, to put this program of action out there online for people to see and to follow you. This quote-unquote type of electronic sponsorship. You know, I saw this vision. I saw you doing this. And I feel like this is something that you should do. You should put this out there. This is how we reach people. This is how we get the recovery rates back for people who are struggling. Right now we're at 3 to 8%, you know, of all people struggling with mind and mood altering substances getting clean and staying clean. Whereas in the early times, you know, our recovery rates were through the roof. You know, somewhere along the line in history here, even as early as the early 1950s, we strayed away from the solution that was written so in masterly detail in the pages of this book. And it's less of the program than it once was, and people aren't getting well and staying well as much anymore. And so I thought about that, and it sounded really good, and I got really excited. I'm like, wow, why didn't I ever think about doing that, you know? But I hadn't thought about it because it wasn't time for me to think about it. I wasn't ready yet. You know, God didn't see fit for me to want to do this yet. But the time has come, and the time is now. And thus Trudge was born, a journey towards being recovered. This is for anybody that wants the permanent recovery, to be removed of that obsession, to have to drink, drug, real addicts, real alcoholics. And look, the single-minded focus came from men and women that struggle with alcoholism. But I'm here to tell you, folks, whatever your problem is, if you can't control it, or if you can't make the choice to stop, I promise you, this is something that can work for you. I bit my nails for 35 years incessantly. I could not stop. I used the 12 steps around this program, and I'm almost free of doing that now for 18 months plus. The obsession to bite my nails has left me. So I know that this isn't something that I just read in the book. This is something that I've witnessed in my own life, and I've witnessed in the lives of other people. And and I want to share it. It's just too good to keep to myself. And there's got to be a way to get it out there in a larger capacity. And I think this is the way to do it. You know, when we go out to eat in good restaurants and we have good meals, you know, what's the first thing we do? We tell people, you got to go check out that restaurant, man. You got to go here and eat this. This is great. Or we see a good movie, or we listen to a new album that has just come out. You got to hear this song. You know, anything that's good, what do? We want to share it with other people so they can have it too. And I don't see why this is any different. You know, I've found a solution. I found a design for living that works. A new way of life that's predicated on having a spiritual experience and the power of God via the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And mind you, there are other people that are going to other fellowships, and I don't get so hell-bent on where you go or what you do. You know, this is where I found it, and I believe that it could work for you. I've seen it work for other people. The problem can be removed, and don't let anyone tell you that it can't. This wholesale miracle has been happening for decades now. You know, and there are people that might think the reading is old and the book is outdated and obsolete, but I'm here to tell you, if, let's say for instance, someone's grandmother has a recipe for a soup that's been passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation, and this recipe one day ends up in your hands. And if you follow the recipe to completion the way your ancestors did, you're going to get that same soup. This is no different. This is no different. But if you do what I did and choose to pick and choose the parts of the program that you want, you know, to use my now alcoholic and a drug-addicted mind to, you know, cook the soup longer than it needs to, or not use this ingredient, or start adding some of my own ingredients, I'm not going to get the same soup. You know, and that's what I did. I chose to, you know, pick and choose parts of the program that I wanted to work and not work, and I never had a spiritual experience because I didn't do the program that was outlined so masterfully in this book the way my forefathers had intended for it to be. You know, and I got what I got. You know, I half measured this program for 11 years. Most people don't make it that long. They don't make it that long. I did. I feel like it was by the grace of God that I did, and you know, because of that, I choose to today want to show other people how I managed to get through that rough time of my life and how my life has become so good now. And again, my life's not predicated on things. It's not predicated on the comma in my bank account or how pretty my girlfriend is. It's not predicated on putting things in so I could feel a certain way. It's about what I can give. It's about how I can help my fellow man. It's about the spiritual principles that are embodied in our 12 steps. And if you are a drug addict or alcoholic or whatever you are, you know, and you can relate with not being able to stop or feeling hopeless and helpless resonates with you, and powerless, you know, that resonates with you on a deep level, and you don't know what to do, or you can't find the type of help that you need, and you're constantly turning to other humans to try to fix your problems, when more than likely, if you're a place beyond human aid, there's only one choice, there's only one way to go about this, and that's to accept spiritual help. And I am here to try in my best efforts to do what was so lovingly done for me, and that's to take you, the viewer, who choose to be willing to go to any lengths to have a spiritual experience and have this obsession, you know, conquered and removed from you. That's what I'm here to try to teach. It's very important that everyone understands that, you know, I'm not looking for any accolades. You know, I'm not getting paid for doing this. I am in no way, shape, or form affiliated with, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous World Services. I'm just a guy out there that's had a spiritual experience that wants to help other people who are afflicted. I'm not looking for any fame. I'm not looking for any fortune. I just want to be of help. That's it. Because somebody helped me when I was going through my darkest hours. And I am forever grateful for that. And I could never in my wildest dreams imagine the life that I have now. And I want to be able to give that gift to other people. You know, our co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W., once said that one of the greatest gifts that can come to a person is the gift of a spiritual experience. And I tend to agree with that. You know, the man that I am today is nowhere near the man that I used to be, and I want to show other people how they can recreate their lives, you know, and be reborn, and further this message in you know, it's in its entirety to those who want it. You know, there's a lot of people that just want to not drink and just want to not drug, and that's fine. That's what I wanted, you know. But the day came where the rubber met the road, and I knew that if I didn't change what was going on inside, that those things that never happened to me, those jets, were about to become reality for me. And so I'm forever grateful for the help that I got, you know, to get to this point. And I know that it could work because, you know, the woman, my sponsor that took me through, you know, lives in Pennsylvania, and I owe her my life. I owe my grand sponsor my life. These people, I owe them everything. And it happened over a phone. So if I can have a spiritual experience by working these steps and reading out of this book and understanding these concepts over a phone, I know that it can happen through this type of social media. And so that's a little bit about my story and who I am and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish here with Trudge. If you have liked anything that you've heard so far, or it resonates with you, and you are willing to go to any length to attain a spiritual experience and get well, there's a couple things that you're going to need. The first thing you're going to need is you're going to need some highlighters. You know, they all mean different things. One's going to be pink, one's going to be yellow, one's going to need to be orange, and one's going to need to be green. You know, they sell these 4-packs. You can get these anywhere. They're not expensive. And, you know, in the next submission of Trudge, we'll go over what those mean and what those stand for. And you'll need a 4th edition, you know, big book. You can get these at any AA meeting, more than likely. You know, a lot of times, even if you don't have the money, you know, people will give you this book. You know, it's really not about the money. It's about the book. It's about what's in the book and how it can help you. And so that's enough about me, because this isn't about me. This is about the steps, and it's about the power of God. You know, but I felt it important to let you, the viewer, know a little bit about who I am and what I've been through, and you know, to quote unquote kind of qualify myself and bring a little bit of experience and solution to the table. In the next submission of Trudge, we are going to begin going through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with we're going to call it a tool called Headlines and Points of Interest. It is almost kind of like a Cliff Notes of the big book, and we're going to start, you know, pointing out to you, the viewer, the man or the woman that wants a spiritual experience, the most important parts of the book, and highlight them. And then we're going to go through the book, the first 164 in its entirety, all 12 steps, and I will show you exactly what was shown to me on how to get well, to be happy, joyous, and free, and to live this spiritual life and all its facets, and then to one day turn around and be able to give it to those who are still struggling, and to be a beacon of light and a beacon of hope for those men and women all over the globe who are still sick and suffering and struggling with drug addiction and alcoholism. So again, my name is Dexter. I am a recovered alcoholic. Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you are the person who believes that this is not for you, that's fine, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch. But if you do think this is for you, the next submission will be highlighted Headlines and Points of Interest, Trudge, A Journey Towards Being Recovered. Feel free to subscribe, and I will be doing this weekly until we are through the program, and it is my hopes that you found the happiness and the obsession removal that I have had. Until then, be well, everyone, and may we trudge the happy road of, you know, this journey together of destiny. Thank you again, and namaste.